Hey everybody, it's great to see you today. Welcome to Living Power, your online Bible study. Today is October 9th, and it really is October 9th because I'm actually taping this morning. It's almost afternoon. I'm so sorry for getting this video out late to you today, but a couple of you told me you couldn't access the video. So when I went to look, I thought, well, I know I posted it. Where is it? It's just gone. I don't know where it is. So I'm retaping for you today, and I'll get this out to you just as soon as I can. This is a lesson that I wouldn't want you to miss because it talks about, in our reading, Jesus feeding the 5,000 and the storm, Jesus walking on water with the storm. So I have some really great fill-in details for you about those events today. So for those of you that mentioned to me today that you had trouble, I want to thank you for sending me that email. So John the Baptist, we're so sorry, is beheaded in the reading today, and we kind of started out with his death today. So that was kind of sad. And then in Mark, it gave us a little bit of details into how that all came to be. Jesus tries to be alone today with his disciples, and there are so many people pressing in on him that this becomes very difficult. However, he goes to a remote place to pray. Bethsaida is a location on the Sea of Galilee that was mentioned today, and the disciples actually get in the boat and are they going to or leaving from Bethsaida? And those of you that have been to the Holy Land know Capernaum and Bethsaida are not that far off. They could have actually walked, so why did they need a boat? So I did some digging. Bethsaida is actually, there are actually two places named that. And this was another Bethsaida that they were going to that was about 6 miles away. Hence, that's why they needed the boat. So I hope that clarifies a little bit for you. Evening comes, the people are hungry. It says there are 5,000 people listening to Jesus' teaching. Now, here's a question for you. Are there 5,000 people or are there 5,000 men? There are actually 5,000 men, and there could be upwards of 20,000 people total, because if you look really closely, women and children are not counted in this number, but there are tons of them, and they're all there. They're all Jewish people, which will be important in a later video later this week, which we'll explain. So these are Jewish people, and they are listening to Jesus teach. He has compassion for them. He is so concerned that they are going to get hungry, which just shows us the tenderness of God's heart. And so he says, you know, what do we have? Well, a little boy had a sacked lunch. I bet that mom who packed that lunch had no idea that God was going to use the lunch that she packed for her son to perform a miracle and bless almost 20,000 people. You just never know when you do your daily work, going about your business, going about your way, you just never know how God can use the things that you do in a day. So he takes 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he feeds all of these people. And in one of the study guides I was reading, it said, you know, these people are starting to think that Jesus could be their king. And in one commentary it said, in their minds they're actually thinking, we could forcibly put him on the throne, and that's how we can regain control of our country from Roman domination. Of course, Jesus knew that's not how the Father wanted this whole thing to play out. And so you'll see during his ministry that there will be times where he just kind of disappears or he just kind of retreats. And it's because he knows what they're thinking. And many times that's exactly what they're thinking. One commentary said it may have taken 2 hours to serve all these people. And they may have actually comprised of multiple acres of land. There's so many people. So the time is Passover. This is Passover number 3 in the Gospels, and it's probably February or March. It's almost Passover. Passover is in April, so it's probably February or March, and we're counting the number of Passovers. That's the timetable that's really given to us in the Gospels, so we can kind of time-bound the items in Jesus' ministry. You know, there was only one other person through whom supernatural food came to the people of Israel. Do you remember who that was from your reading in the Old Testament? Go way back. Think back to Exodus. Remember Moses with the manna. Moses and the manna. That was supernatural food given to the people. So this kind of reminds us of that. After the feeding of the 5,000 men, plus women and children, Jesus says, you go on ahead, go on to the boat, and it's not quite night yet. I'm going into the hills to be alone and pray. He prays till 3 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know what it could have been, 8 o'clock. He prays for 6 or 7 hours. The disciples, meanwhile, are on the sea. It doesn't say exactly when a storm came up, but the terrain lends itself to storms being very sudden, very violent, because there are hills all around the Sea of Galilee, and it kind of creates this little cave. And the winds come down and come on the sea, bellow in, and it's understandable how the fishermen can be caught off guard by these storms. And who knows how many hours they were battling the storm. And so my point there is that they had just experienced this major high with God in being a part of this major miracle. Isn't it opportunistic for the devil to come at us after we have this high? And the devil uses this storm to create a low, because the text says, by the time Jesus arrives and he's walking out on water to see them, it's pitch black, it's in the middle of the night, it's probably 3 a.m. They've been fighting this storm for hours. They are probably exhausted. They are scared, and they see this thing coming at them and they think it's a ghost. They are frightened. So the reminder there is that after we have a spiritual high, it's very commonplace for the devil to come at us and attack us at that point and take us down to a low. However, what happens after we reach that low? Jesus comes, because it says the minute Jesus came, after they thought it was a ghost, they recognized him. He steps in the boat, and immediately the storm goes calm. So if you are in the midst of a storm today, get Jesus in your boat. That is the safest place to be, and the storm will subside, and it'll be okay. So this point is where the disciples understand and proclaim that he is God. You see, it's one thing to understand Jesus as Messiah. He's the proclaimed King, the King that will come and will usher in God's kingdom and be the leader of the nation. But it's another thing entirely to see him as the Son of God. And here they are in verse 32 of Matthew 14. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. And this was the first time that they are saying, you really are divinity. For to perform such a miracle as to walk on water, you have to be in control of nature to do something like that. And that is amazing. Okay, so we'll say one more thing today and we'll go ahead and wrap up. There are a couple of significant events that happen that we don't want to miss in the giving of the 5 loaves and the 5 fishes today. Okay, so remember, he does this before he walks on the water. It was during the day. He's doing teaching on the hillside, and believe me, when we were there at the Holy Land, we did a little test, and it is true, it is amazingly true how your voice can absolutely carry great distances. So here's one significant aspect of the loaves and the fishes. Number 1, the disciples were only distributors of the miracle. They were the conduit. They participated, but God, Jesus, actually did the work. And that's true of the miracles that we see today. We participate, but it is actually God performing any of the miracles that happen today, whether it be a changed life, a changed heart, a healing. It's still God performing that work. Number 2, so far in the story, in the Gospels, this is one of the few stories in the entire Gospel that is told by all four Gospels, all four of the Gospel writers. And so that tells us that it's a very important story, the 5 loaves and the 5 fishes. Later on in the week, we're going to revisit this, and we're going to learn something significant that applies to us today. And I'm not going to spoil it for you today, because there is another story later in the week where Jesus feeds another multitude. And at that time, we're going to point back to this day, and we're going to recall some similarities and some differences about those 2 feedings. So that's coming up this week. Number 3, very significant. It shows the heart of Jesus, that he has compassion for the people. He is so concerned that they are hungry. He wants not only their spiritual needs met, but their physical needs met as well. And here's the clincher. Here's where we've been kind of working up to today. Number 4, something very significant out of the story of the loaves and fishes is that Jesus tells the disciples to gather the leftovers. This word leftover in the Greek also means fragments. It means broken pieces. It means the shard. It means the pieces that you think don't have any value. So let's think about this application for our life today. All of us, as we go through our life, make mistakes. We do things that we wish we hadn't. We all have things in our past that we wish we could do over. We'll call those the broken fragments, the shards of our life. The message, one of the many messages in the loaves and fishes, is that Jesus can take the leftovers, the shards, the broken pieces of our life, the parts that we wished we could do over, the parts that we think are so broken and messed up that God can't possibly do anything with. And he can take these fragments, and if we bring them to him, we gather them, if we take them to him, he can turn them into something significant and meaningful for our life and for his kingdom. So the call today is that we would gather up the broken pieces, and that we would lay those aspects of our life that we think are just broken and meaningless, and we trust God to turn even the fragments around into something significant and meaningful for our life, and perhaps even to be a blessing to someone else's life. For Jesus can perform many, many miracles, even using gathered fragments. Well, I'm going to leave you today with that thought, and pray shalom, blessings over you today. Tell you thank you so much for being with me today. We will continue in our story of the Gospels over the coming days. Blessings to you. Shalom.